2, 1.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday Set.
On today's episode, scientists are creating cyborg goldfish, Google's leaning to AI, and there's a groundbreaking new Alzheimer's treatment. But first, it was on this day in 1856 that Charles Darwin began writing his seminal book, The Origin of the Species. Now, they may not have the best reputation for brain power, but goldfish are the new focus for a group of Israeli neuroscientists. Scientists from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev performed brain surgery on 15 goldfish, attaching recording devices to their heads to examine how they navigate their world. They're being called cyborg goldfish, and to find out more, we spoke to Lear, Cohen, the neuroscientist who performed the surgeries.
So this study is part of a neurotology study. Neurotology studies, in general, meaning understanding the neural basis of a specific behavior. In our case, the behavior is navigation. This is a behavior that every animal do in order to survive. And this is what makes this specific behavior interesting. And to study the neural basis, what we do, we want to record the activity of single neurons in the brain and see how this neural activity is related to the navigation. So this implant is composed of electrodes that we implant in the specific region in the goldfish brain, and it's connected to a small computer, to a small recording device that is placed in a waterproof case, recording the neural activity while the fish is freely swimming.
Obviously, fish need water, so how did you manage to perform the surgery and keep them safe?
Yeah, that's a good question, but actually, fish doesn't have to be fully submerged in water. All they have to do to breathe is to get water through their mouth and out through their gills. So we have this kind of tube that takes water with anesthesia to the mouth of the fish, and this water are coming back in kind of a circle with a pump. So the fish is kind of respirated and under anesthesia at the same time, so we can put it out of water, but it is still breathing.
And with a new device sticking out the head, how do you stop them from sinking?
This whole implant has about 50 grams, I think, of weight. But to balance this, we put a piece of styrofoam on top of the implant, and this makes the buoyancy neutral.
Okay, so once it was fitted, how did the experiment look?
Now, after it gets to know the environment, we are doing the surgery, and then in the experiment itself, we literally just let the fish swim for about an hour, swim wherever you want, however you want. We're tracking its position, and in the same time, we're recording the brain activity. And then afterwards, offline, we are analyzing the connection between the brain activity and the behavior, like swimming speed, swimming direction, position, all kinds of aspects of navigation.
So what were the results? How does fish navigation differ from mammal navigation, apart from water?
So one of the most interesting aspects of our study was to understand how fish knows its exact position. What we did find in this new study is that they have cells that their activity is gradually decreasing with distance from a salient feature in the environment. So these cells are called boundary vector cells. For example, if the fish has one cell telling it you are in a specific distance from the left wall, and another cell telling it you are in a specific distance from the right wall, so together it can triangulate its position. Because they are telling the animal a position along a specific axis in space rather than an exact you are here, as we saw in mammals.
So what happens next?
We are working on a system to track real fish in a real environment in large pools, and we are also building another platform that can track fish in the sea. And the future is really taking this experiment to natural environments, to the environment that the fish really lives in.
Now to another kind of fish. Forget hook, line and sinker, these scientists have found a new way to get your Friday fish and chips. An Israeli food tech company has 3D printed the first ever ready-to-cook fish fillet using lab-cultivated animal cells. And the verdict?
It's really tasty.
Israeli Stakeholder Foods has partnered with Singapore-based Umami Meats to make fish fillets. So how does it work? Well, Umami Meats first extracts the fish cells, and these are then grown into muscle and fat. Stakeholder Foods then adds them to what they call a bio-ink to use in their special 3D printers, and the result is a narrow fillet which mimics the properties of sea-caught fish. Eric Kauffman is the CEO of Stakeholder Foods.
The flakiness is something that is much more easier to mimic. And with our patent-protected printing capabilities, we know to 3D print exactly the same texture and flakiness of a real fish. They can say that here the process is clean, it's transparent, the end product is antibiotics-free, and I assume that in the future we will understand the health benefits of these cultivated meat products.
Umami hopes to bring its first products to Singapore in 2024, and then countries like the US and Japan. Megumi Avigail Yoshitomi is the representative director of Japan's Association for Cellular Agriculture. What a mouthful. And she is impressed.
I can feel almost the same experience of the fish structure in my mouth. And I'm also really amazed by the juiciness and also the kind of a buttery feel.
Lab-grown beef and chicken have been drawing attention as a way to sidestep the environmental toll of farming and tackle concerns of animal welfare. But not many companies have taken the plunge with seafood. And while the process for creating lab-grown fish is a bit simpler for beef, there's still some disadvantages. According to Umami's chief exec Mihir Pashad, unlike beef, we just don't know much about fish stem cells.
We've managed to do it for grouper and for eel. We have 3 other species in our pipeline that are also endangered sort of species that we'll be coming out with publicly in the next few months.
Meeting price of fish from the sea is also a challenge.
We want consumers to choose based on how it tastes and what it can do for the world and for the planetary environment. And we want to take cost off the table as a consideration.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, first of its kind brain surgery and wearable tech to save your voice. Even the best vocalists have their off days.
Make my wish come true. I'm just gonna keep on waiting.
This is voice expert Theresa Brancaccio.
So vocal fatigue is the sensation of being tired in the throat, the neck muscles around the larynx, or even within the larynx or the voice box, if you will. And it ends up resulting in an inability to have endurance.
You gotta commit. You gotta commit the way you committed all year.
And or a change of quality in the voice.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Ah!
Sometimes a lack of control in your sound. If things aren't working properly, you're risking your ability to have a successful career if this is an ongoing issue.
But researchers at Northwestern University have a solution. They've developed the first smart wearable device that senses when a user's voice needs a break. The soft, flexible, battery-operated device continually tracks how much a user uses their voice and then alerts them before vocal fatigue and potential injury. Brancaccio's previously created an app for tracking vocal use, while Northwestern University's John Rogers developed a wearable device to monitor swallowing and speech in stroke patients.
I felt like it was a great opportunity for us to extend our technology beyond these sort of very important but maybe narrow targeted uses in healthcare to something that would capture maybe a broader population of potential users in the future. Instead of using a microphone, because very few people want to have all of their conversations recorded 24/7, what we integrate into our device is a very highly sensitive motion sensor. You can measure speaking and singing, but in a way that doesn't yield interpretable speech.
The captured data is instantly streamed via Bluetooth to a user's smartphone or tablet, where they can set their personalized vocal thresholds. When they near that threshold, a device on their wrist buzzes.
I think there are so many different applications for this. Attorneys, public speakers, teachers are another big demographic.
Keep the pulse.
They're giving all day and they're interacting with their students and they're lecturing, etc., and they lose track of themselves. We can only keep so many balls in the air. It's nice every once in a while to have something tracking for us.
Doctors in Boston have performed a groundbreaking surgery on a baby's brain whilst it was still in the womb. It was a normal pregnancy, but at the 30-week scan, doctors found baby Denver had a rare blood vessel abnormality inside the brain, which often causes heart failure or brain damage with a low survival rate. So, at 34 weeks of pregnancy, a team at Boston's Children's Hospital were able to repair the malformation while she was still in the uterus. Dr. Darren Orbach spoke to WBZ-TV about the intricate procedure he performed.
Just seeing her in the NICU be fine, and we would all sort of look at each other and pinch ourselves, and we weren't sure when it was okay to celebrate, because you just don't see that with these babies. So that was really the moment that we knew that all was going to be great.
Denver's mum and dad say the stars were aligned.
Derek and I are deeply rooted in our faith, and we prayed hard for this. There was no doubt in our minds that, God would perform a miracle, and he did, on a public platform using a little girl, before she was even born, she made her mark on the world.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, Google's latest AI enhancements and new hope for Alzheimer's treatment. Right after this.
You're listening to the Sunday 7. Follow us for your weekday news espresso, or even try our Ireland edition. It's in all the usual places.
Here's an early look at what's to come for AI in search.
At its annual I/O conference on Wednesday, Google unveiled its plans to bring more artificial intelligence to its core products. They talked about its revamped search engine, which can craft responses to open-ended queries. For example, rather than just asking it what the weather's like, you could ask, what should I wear? Users in the United States will be able to gain access to a trial version called the Search Generative Experience in just a few weeks. But that's not all. Gmail, Maps and Photos are getting an upgrade too. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google's parent Alphabet, took to the stage to demonstrate.
We are taking the next step in Gmail with Help Me Write. Let's say you got this email that your flight was cancelled. The airline has sent a voucher, but what you really want is a full refund. You could reply and use Help Me Write. Just type in the prompt of what you want, an email to ask for a full refund, hit create, and a full draft appears. As you can see, it conveniently pulled in flight details from the previous email, and it looks pretty close to what you want to send.
The next example is Maps.
Imagine if you could see your whole trip in advance. Say I'm in New York City, and I want to go on a bike ride, and I want to get a feel for it first. Click on Immersive View for routes, and it's an entirely new way to look at my journey. I can zoom in to get an incredible bird's eye view of the ride. And as we turn, we get onto a great bike path. And if I want to check traffic and weather and see how they might change over the next few hours, I can do that. Looks like it's going to pour later, so maybe I want to get going now.
Another product made better by AI is Google Photos.
Using a combination of semantic understanding and generative AI, you can do much more with a new experience called Magic Editor.
This goes way beyond the Magic Eraser, the feature that allows you to remove unwanted parts of a photo. With Magic Editor, you can now add to the image. For example, on stage is an image of a boy sitting on a bench holding a bunch of colourful balloons.
And it looks like the balloons got cut off in this one. So you can go ahead and reposition the birthday boy. Magic Editor automatically recreates parts of the bench and balloons that were not captured in the original shot. As a finishing touch, you can punch up the sky. It changes the lighting in the rest of the photo so the edit feels consistent. It's truly magical. From Gmail and Photos to Maps, these are just a few examples of how AI can help you in moments that matter. We have an opportunity to make AI even more helpful for people, for businesses, for communities, for everyone.
Coastal Coastal towns around the world are under threat as erosion and diminishing reefs shrink their beaches. And while it can take hundreds or even thousands of years for coral to develop a reef system, there's a project underway to speed up that process. Ocean Shot project, spearheaded by climate scientist Dr. Deborah Brosnan, is currently working in Antigua and Barbuda. Here she is talking to CBS News.
What we're trying to do is recognise first that we lose more coral reefs in a day than we can restore in a decade, and that our progress towards protecting coral reefs that ultimately protect us is too slow. So Ocean Shot is about literally rebuilding the reefs, the architecture of the reefs for the future, repopulating them with corals, and then allowing other species to move back in. It's almost like gardening. We have to make sure we weed them and check on how they're doing.
Her team's not just building the reefs, they're also growing what she calls resilient corals that can withstand some of the impacts of climate change.
A living reef that's close to the surface breaks about 95% of a wave's energy. So when the wave comes in, it hits the reef, the energy is broken, and you get calm waters inside the reef. Create more resilient communities and create more resilient coastlines against sea level rise and against climate change.
But according to Dr. Brosnan, saving the reef isn't just about protecting the planet.
Our planet is at stake. If we don't have coral reefs, we lose 25% of marine life. And we lose all of the services marine life provides to us. We lose the coastal protection that we depend on. And we lose all of the knock-on effects that we don't even know about yet.
It's only been about 6 months since they planted the first set, but it's already showing significant success. And Brosnan's hoping to scale up across the world.
We now have 9 different species, over 300 corals growing on the new modules. And we've been monitoring them using AI technology cameras to be able to detect what's there and how the health of these corals are progressing. We've got 97 to 98% survival of the corals we've transplanted. And we now have 26 new species that have moved in by themselves onto these reef modules. Everything from parrotfish to commercial fish to commercial lobster. And then we've put some sea urchins on there as well to keep the algae down.
There's new hope on the horizon for Alzheimer's patients. An experimental drug's been shown to significantly slow cognitive and functional decline. It's a monoclonal antibody, a special type of protein designed to remove plaque from the brain, which is one of the defining features of the disease. The drug, called donanemab, slowed the progression of symptoms by 35% over a period of 18 months when compared with a placebo.
For the past 20 years or so, we've had drugs available that work on the symptoms but really do not get at the underlying biology of the disease.
This is Dr. Ronald Petersen, an Alzheimer's researcher from the Mayo Clinic.
So donanemab is a drug that gets at the underlying disease process, a so-called disease-modifying therapy.
Current research finds it most effective for those with mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia, but researchers say it's possible the drug could also be preventative.
It's important. It doesn't stop the disease. It doesn't make people better, but it may slow the rate at which they decline.
There are a few side effects, including bleeding in the brain, so periodic MRI scans are recommended. Approval's likely by June, with a green light expected early next year.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.